All right, hey guys, welcome back. I'm Jeffrey. This is Yoga Framework, and every week I teach you how to create a better yoga and mobility practice. This week, or not this week, but today on this episode, we're going to be talking about active stretching. So the last episode, which was just a few days ago, we talked about passive stretching. And today we're going to take that a little further and we're going to talk about the next rung, let's say, the next level, and that's active stretching. So before we start, of course, like always, I have a pop quiz. And here we go. What is the common term used to describe the meiotic reflex? Now, if you watched the last episode, you might know the answer. Or you should know the answer because it was a major part. I'll read it again. What is the common term used to describe the meiotic reflex? I really need some background music here. I'm gonna have to download some Jeopardy-like royalty-free music for the next time so I can like get it a little more entertaining and be like all the cool kids on the tubes. All right, 15 seconds. Let me get ready with that answer for you. All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, and it is the stretch reflex. So the common term used to describe the meiotic reflex is just the stretch reflex. Bonus points. How do you say the opposite term for the meiotic reflex? What is the term, the word I'm looking for? I'll give you like 10 seconds. It's kind of like the opposite of the meiotic reflex. I'm going to type it here. And there it is, the inverse meiotic reflex. I believe that's it. Let's just refer to the book, you know, because that's where all this information is coming from. It is. It's the inverse. I was right. I mean, I did write the book, but even I forget, right? Who doesn't? Let's go to the schedule. What's on the schedule for today? All right, active stretching. Of course, we're going to discuss active stretching. But in addition to active stretching, we are going to go a little deeper. We're going to dive into kinetic and dynamic stretching, which are kind of the same, really, in the end. Just different small variations, if any. Then we're going to go on to a pose breakdown. I'm going to talk about a pose. We're going to make it passive. We're going to make it active. We're going to make it kinetic. I mean, we're going to have a party with that pose. Pose party. And maybe I should change it to being a pose party. Pose party. No, okay. And then we're going to go over the sequences and patterns. So I have a couple, I have one sequence that we're going to do, and I'm going to show you how it's done like traditional yoga style with, I guess, a passive element. And then we're going to do it more modern style, and that's going to be with the active / kinetic dynamic component. All right, cool. So I hope that you're excited because, you know, I am. Oh, that's the zoom. I'm playing around with having like a, whoa. But that's a little too close for the moment. So let's maybe, let's go back to where we're going to begin, to the active stretching. So if you have the book already, I'm just going to skip over to page 141. All right. And before we start, actually, the book, the Yoga Framework course book. This is a book that I put together with some of my peers. This is a collection of information. I mean, we have Yoga, right? I studied a bunch of different styles of yoga, and I also cited, right? There's sightings in here from other books you'll find, like aliens, and you'll be discovered. So I'm not making this up. This is legit. Then there's also mobility stuff in here, which is awesome, right? Everyone wants to know about mobility, FRC and stuff. And, you know, a little bit of the movement culture, because it did some of that too. But, you know, I'm not, you know, it's just an all-around encompassing book about movement in general. Like, it's an open source movement manual. I guess that's a good way to think of it too. But you can get the book. It's over 240 pages of movement information. We also have the Yoga Framework Sequence Deck. Now, this isn't only yoga. You can use this for mobility too. It does have mostly yoga poses, and I might be doing an expansion pack for mobility or floor sequencing, which would be cool, because then we can, you know, can really combine it. But as it is, it already has so much information, and I encourage you to check it out because it is a great resource. It's an advanced resource. It does all the sequences. It's color coded. It aligns with the theories in the book, and let's just keep going with the book. All right. So last time we talked about passive and range and passive stretching, and I'm just going to read the definition of passive stretching really quick. We're going to say passive or static passive flexibility, also called passive or relaxed flexibility or passive stretching in general, hot day today, is the ability to assume positions at end range and then maintain them using only your weight, the support of your joints, limbs, or some other apparatus such as a chair, block, bar, or something like that. So like we said yesterday or the day before or the last episode, which I don't remember when it was, don't worry, we are talking about an outside force, an external force doing the work. Your trainer, your friend moving your leg for you. You're not trying, right? You're not doing any of this. You're allowing it to just happen from someone else doing it. It could also be gravity and stuff like that. But it's basically you're not trying, right? That's the idea. Now, we're going to go over to active stretching. I'm going to read that definition. Static active flexibility, also called active flexibility, is the ability to assume and maintain extended positions using only the tension of the agonist and synergist while the muscles are being stretched. An example would be lifting the leg and keeping it high without any external support other than from your own leg muscles. Active stretching increases flexibility and strengthens the muscles. All right, I'm getting too much into the book. But basically, you're using the agonist and the synergist muscles to support your position. You're not using your arms or something. And there is a relative back and forth here, because in the end, you are going to use your hands a little bit. And as you go from, let's say, passive to active, there'll be this slight decrease of weight bearing and weight use of the active and passive components. And, you know, it's relative, as most things in life, as you probably know. So I hope that kind of gives you a quick little rundown of what active stretching is, right? You're just using the muscles instead of using your arms and your legs. And obviously, we're gonna go over to the studio, right? We're gonna check it out. I'm gonna take you through it. And that's where we're gonna do the pose breakdown and also the sequence and pattern that I put together, or the mobility, active, dynamic pattern, you name it. Okay, so let's move ahead. We'll talk about kinetic stretching now. Dynamic stretching, and you might be saying, hey Jeff, what about keen stretch? You know, FRC, you're FRC and FRA, why aren't you keen stretch? And I thought, you know, I was gonna do it. I was really thinking about it. I actually had almost scheduled the seminar, but what I realized is if you study the material enough, the keen stretch is just like a group fitness type of activity. I talked to other people that took it, And you're really just paying, I mean, no hate there, all love. And like with everything, you're just paying for the certification and the ideal and other parts of that. So I don't think it's necessary to have kinetic stretching. And really the difference, the keen stretch certification, and really the difference between kinetic stretching and keen stretch is a trademark. That's what I realized, right? You can't trademark kinetic stretching because it's generic, but you have to make something unique, and that's where keen stretch is. So just like yoga methods, because that's rampant in our business, right? A new method of yoga, let's pay for that. Let's pay for this, let's pay for that. It's the same in every fitness genre. Like I said, no hate to FRC and FRA, totally worth it. If you're interested in it, I would totally recommend it. If you're interested in keen stretch and you're having trouble putting it together, I totally recommend that. I'm just saying it might not be necessary. Take it with a grain of salt. Okay. So kinetic and dynamic stretching, let's get into that. Dynamic flexibility, also called kinetic flexibility, is the ability to perform dynamic or kinetic movements in the muscles to bring one or more joints through an end range of motion. So basically what that is saying is that you're going to move through a full range of motion beginning to end, kinetically or dynamically, slowly, controlled, and using the agonist and the synergist muscles. So it's kind of an active stretch, but it's a pattern. We also call this, this might qualify for an ISO-MP, an isometric movement pathway, an FRC. I mean, there are, like I said, there's a ton of different ways to spin the material, but it is basically the material. And that's what you want to learn. You want to learn the framework. That's why I said this book is not about me. It's about the basics. And that's why it's so important to know this, because you can literally put it onto anything. This doesn't just apply to, you can not only add this to any lineage and practice as a training, but you can apply it to any lineage. That's the thing. All the concepts in here, they apply to human movement. So they will apply reverse sequence, reverse, what am I looking for? What's the word I'm looking for? Oh, sorry about that. Notification. Oh, man. Basically like, okay, let's move on. All right, dynamic stretching is confusing because it does not have the static reverse engineer. Wow, there I got it. Dynamic stretching is confusing because it does not have the static aspect we are used to seeing in a stretch. It's dynamic. So this is where it becomes confusing, is because you're moving and you're not used to thinking that a stretch is moving, or at least not moving through full ranges, because you can do a couple different movements at once, and that would be a kinetic or dynamic sequence. Isometric movement pathway. I hope you see where this is going, right? It's all one and the same. It's just more force. In the last episode, I said what Dr. Dre talks about at FRC is force is the language of the cells. And that means that the only thing your body really understands is pressure, tension, irradiation, whatever you want to call it, right? It's just that. And that's all you have to work with. So when you're doing more advanced stretching practices, the only thing that you can add is more feedback, which is usually tension, gravity, weight, whatever you want to call it, the framework. All right, cool. Let me just check. Yeah, I don't see any questions yet, so no worries. You could always leave the questions in the comment. And by the way, if you're enjoying this content, please, like the kids say, smash the like button and subscribe to the channel, because it would really help me out and it really helped me to continue all this free education, because that's really what I want to do, is I want to continue this free education. I want to keep giving it all to you. I hate that people are charging thousands of dollars for education. I'm totally on that sharing education and making it accessible. Let's make it accessible together. I mean, all it'll cost you is a book for a teacher training, pretty much. And here, we'll see how the future pans out. Maybe I'll even license you, certify you through here. I mean, I could, but maybe even through other means. I'm not going to even go into it. All right, let's go to the studio. I'm ready to get started. Too much talking, Jeff, right? Stop talking. There we are. We're at the studio. I'm gonna take my little camera off here, and I'm gonna meet you. Oh, wait a minute. I almost went too quick because I forgot to go over the pose and the sequence. I was just gonna jump on over there. Well, let's come back pull it back. Today's pose and the pose breakdown is gonna be crescent moon. All right, that's a great pose. We do it a lot. It's basically a lunge with your back knee down. We're gonna do it passive. We're gonna do it active. We're gonna make it dynamic, all right? And I have a little bit of the articulations here. All right, we have ankle dorsiflexion. That's a main one in the lunge. We have knee flexion, also a main one in the lunge. We have hip and knee flexion. Well, that's what I meant to say, sorry. Hip and knee extension. So in the front leg, you have hip and knee flexion. In the back leg, you have hip and knee extension. And they are also kind of working in conjunction to maintain the pose. We have spine extension, right? That's part of the back bend. You might be looking for it in different places or not. You might be neutral because you have pain. And we can always, that's another episode, back pain, which I'm totally gonna attack that a little more in more detail. And then we have shoulder flexion, which is the act of taking your arms over your head. Sure, maybe you're doing goalpost, it's scapular retraction. There could be other articulations, but these are the main articulations in crescent moon. Ankle dorsiflexion, hip and knee flexion in the front leg, hip and knee extension in the back leg, and then we have spine extension or maybe some neutrality if you're having an issue, and shoulder flexion or a variation of that in some way. Sorry, just give me a second. I gotta check. There might be a fire that I have to put out right now. Cool. All right. Oh, sorry if that clap might have been a little loud. All right, so that's the pose, crescent moon. What about the sequence, Jeff? What are we doing? Well, today, of course, we're doing an active and kinetic sequence. And like I said, I'm gonna make it passive, and then we're gonna make it active and dynamic and kinetic, and then you're gonna understand the differences between that. And what else on the sequence? How are we gonna do that? Well, these are gonna be the poses. Simple, high lunge, then it's gonna go pyramid pose, then crescent moon. I might switch out crescent moon and pyramid pose. We might switch those back and forth. And on a bonus, I might add another sequence. I'm thinking if we have time and I remember, we'll do warrior two, extended side angle, and extended triangle, because it's not triangle, it's extended triangle. It's funny, we all say extended side angle, but then we just say triangle. But they're both extended, and that's talking about your spine, and that's important. I just wanted to make that point. All right, so without further ado, it's time. Let's go to the studio. Here we are. Welcome to the Yoga Framework Studio. My name's Jeff. Oh, you know that already. I know, I'm not funny. Okay, let's get started with the work. We're gonna do the sequence. Actually, first we're gonna do the pose breakdown. The pose is crescent moon. And what we're gonna do is we're gonna make the passive aspect of it. So you might wanna pad up your knee depending on your tolerance or your shin or whatnot. I'm just gonna come down lightly. I'm gonna untuck my back toe. I guess I could have said there's also plantar flexion in the back foot. Right, so we're gonna have ankle dorsiflexion, we're gonna have knee flexion, and then we're also gonna work hip extension in the back here. And then we're gonna work hip flexion in the front. And then it's gonna be well, eventually knee extension a little bit more on the back leg as I move forward. I also talked about some spinal extension and shoulder flexion. So all together, knee flexion and ankle dorsiflexion. I'm also having hip extension and hip flexion. I have more knee extension now. And I can do a little spinal extension, shoulder flexion. Or I could bend my arms for retraction and shoulder flexion and scapula depression, or whatever, not depression, but retraction, sorry. All right, so that's the passive pose. And it's actually pretty active because my hands are down. If we wanted it really passive, we would do something like this. And you might have seen this in yoga. People do the pose like this as well. This is a much more passive version of the pose. I still have the stretch, right, in my hip. This is the stretch right here. This is the main stretch in your body. The knee and the ankle, they're assessing, right? You're loading. That's isometric power, stretch. So you don't want to push hard here. You're actually loading this area more likely. Okay, so that's the passive. I'm just going to switch sides to do the active. And the active crescent moon is going to be a lot different. What I'm going to do, well, actually I'll start on the ground to make it a little more uniform. So I'm going to start down here. If I wanted to make this pose active, I would, first, like I said, have my arms up, but I have to engage the back leg more. So I have to get it lifted, but I don't want to come into a full lunge. So I'm going to keep the knee bent. I'm going to tuck the toe, and I'm just going to hover the back knee. So I'm going to tuck my toe here, and just like that. And then I could find that same position, and I'm immediately shaking in my back leg. So the feeling that I'm getting in the back leg here is completely different than I had in the other pose, right? The passive is more like I'm feeling it, I'm at the end range, I'm waiting. When I'm here and I lift my hands, it's a little loaded, I feel more. But when I tuck the toe and stay here low, 5 to 15 seconds, I can really feel it, right? I can feel the hip flexor working, whew. And I could feel the agonist and the synergist muscles controlling the stretch. The only difference between those two positions was the knee was lifted. So I was creating a little bit of work, or actually a lot of work in the leg, instead of leaning on the floor. Passive on the floor, using more of the floor. Active, using less of the floor, maybe none of it. Right? So there's not black and white. You don't just lift your hands to make it active. It's got levels. It's like an onion. It's got layers. Okay, so how are we going to do that sequence now? I told you I was going to take you through the sequence. So we're going to use that crescent moon. I'm going to do the passive sequence first, and then we're going to do the active sequence, and I'm going to show it. So high lunge either way is active pretty much, but pyramid and crescent moon, those are the ones that aren't. So I'm going to start from a standing position. I'm going to do a reverse lunge. Don't worry about it. So I'm just going to step the leg back. Most people start from downward dog, I know. So I have the reverse lunge. I'm going to go high lunge. Once I'm in high lunge, I'm going to take the hands down for pyramid. All right, this is the passive. I'm still a little active, but my hands, they're working, they're holding it. And then I'm going to take the knee down, crescent moon, and reach the arms. I could take the hands back in reverse, find the passive pyramid pose, and then sure, lunge, high lunge is active, and step forward. So that's a typical yoga sequence, not a full lengthy one, but a typical beginning of a yoga sequence that you would find in a class, mostly passive. Even the standing sequences, right? You're mostly using the floor. Now, how do we make that active or the poses active? really making it a kinetic sequence or a dynamic sequence, because when you're using the active poses together, that's where you're going to get that isometric movement pathway or the kinetic stretch. I hate the quote, stop using them. The kinetic stretch. So let's start. I'm going to do that really slow now. So I'm going to do that same side. I'm going to lift the leg, get the reverse lunge, high lunge. So this time I'm going to come into pyramid. I'm just not going to ever touch the floor. All right, and I am stretching, but it's harder, right? I could lightly find my balance, but I'm stretching. And then the crescent, I'm stretching, right? I'm stretching here. I'm just not letting the knee touch the floor. And then I can go in reverse, back to the pyramid. Active, right? Lightly touching if I need it. High lunge. The same feeling in crescent moon, by the way. And step. Probably less, because in crescent moon you are lower. You are able to use more of the leg. And that's not easy, by the way. I'm a little winded. Let's just do the other side. We'll go over it one more time so you can understand. I have my lovely assistant Cheddar here today. He might end up doing a pose or two. Hopefully we can catch it on camera. Okay, I'm gonna step back, hopefully not on him. Find the lunge. High lunge, right? Get low. And then pyramid pose. Slow on these, right? Kinetic, dynamic. You don't want to move fast. And then crescent moon. This is why vinyasa is not really great stretching if you're going really fast. It's more aerobic. Oh, there we go. And step. And that is a powerful sequence to do. It's all hip extension, flexion, knee extension, flexion. It's great. Let's go over that other sequence. Let me take a long. Okay. We're going to do warrior two to extended side angle to extended triangle. That's the other one. So I'm just going to start in warrior two. I'm not going to go over warrior two. This is like the most basic pose ever. It just feels good, I feel. Extended side angle. I'm extending my spine. I could take my hand down, but I'm extending. Arm could be wherever you want. Passive, right? Passive. Leaning on the floor or the joint. Extend the spine. There's a passive aspect. Triangle. Leaning on the joint or the floor in some way. Extend your spine. Passive aspect of that position. And I am folding forward a little bit just in case. Don't stay over the leg like this. Come forward into fold. There's a rotation in this pose, right? Think revolve side angle, extended side angle is the other way. Revolve triangle, regular triangle is the other way. And your torso does respond accordingly. Let's make it active. Giving you a little secret here, warrior two, and instead of coming down, just bend the elbow. Now it's active. Same pose. You could even say, hey, maybe touch the floor and then bend your elbow. And you can see the real power that you might have in the pose. Extended triangle, same pose. Just extend the knee. I can go back and forth. It's not easy, but notice nothing's changing. They're both extension in the spine. Whew. And that, like I said, is not easy. These active positions, putting them all together to make the kinetic or dynamic stretch, that's what it's all about. That's active, kinetic, and dynamic stretching in a nutshell. Trapped, trying to get out. Let's get back over there. Whew, welcome back. I'm nice and sweaty from that. Again, we did the active kinetic stretch, high lunge to pyramid pose to crescent moon. There's a balance between using the hands and not. It's not like you don't, it's not like it doesn't count if you don't use your hands. It does. Just be careful using too much of your hands and know, right? Play that balance. See what you're doing. Like, make it make sense for you. You're going to be the one in the body. It's your body. Only you know where it's been. Don't do something I did just because you thought it was good. Who knows? I don't live in your body, you know? That's the main thing. You want to keep it safe. All right. So check out the book, please. Why not, right? The deck. You want to learn how to sequence? You want to get my concepts? You want to get into my brain a little bit? Check it out. I like it. I just want to thank you for being here again. I saw we have a few people on the stream today. Thanks so much for being here. Like I said, smash the like button for me, please. Even if it's after the stream, leave a comment down below. I'll answer it 100%, 100. And I'm Jeffrey. This is Yoga Framework. I just want to thank you for coming today. And every week, I teach you how to create a better yoga and mobility practice. Thanks for joining me.